And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Lance Armstrong. How are you, buddy?
Good, man. Thanks.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it, for real. And, you were just telling me before this, we were talking about social media. And social media, the greatest part about social media is you get in contact with everybody. Yep. The worst part about social media is that you get in contact with everybody. Right. And it's just a tiny percentage of people that won't let it rest. Like, I was looking at something that you posted, and it was something about you had a great time doing some race, and like one of the first tweets, one of the first comments was, as good a time as running away from drug tests.
I mean, that's right. You're just gonna have. I mean, what did we? I mean, I posted the other day. We were putting our Christmas tree up, and with my family, like all the kids there, and Anna, and the lights and the ornaments, and it's the fucking Christmas tree, and of course. Most people love it. They think it's a cute picture. But then there's always the one, is the tree juiced? Or something. I mean, there's just always, which I get. I mean, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're like, come, is that the best we got? And like,
yeah.
I mean, maybe that is. Maybe I deserve it. I don't know. But it's like, give it a rest sometimes.
Well, you definitely deserve some of it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There's no way around that.
Of course.
But it's also, I think one of the things about this whole scandal, the whole thing, it illuminated the real issue. Mm-hmm. And the real issue is and this is what we were talking about, Bill Burr did that thing on Conan, where he was saying, the fucking whole sport is like this. It's not, there was, all the people that won the Tour de France and all the years that you did it, if you go back to people that either weren't implicated or didn't test positive, like what is it, like 18th place or something fucking crazy like that?
That's probably generous.
Yeah, right?
It would be hard to know that. And I mean, look, Joe, these are all easy for me to sit here and say and talk about, and people would say, well, of course he says that.
Right.
Of course he thinks that. And
well, it's all out on the table now. I mean, you really don't have anything to gain.
But is it?
It is.
Is it? No. I mean,
isn't it?
It's, well, I guess it is, but, people don't want to talk about that. I mean, people want to talk about my issue, and that's, I guess, also understandable. But look, it was a fucked up time. And you were at this crossroads of a very hard sport. A very hard event. Some would say one of the hardest sporting events in the world. 3 weeks, 2,500 miles, conditions, terrain, et cetera, et cetera. So that meets really the perfect drug. I mean, you have a drug that's incredibly beneficial, and at the time totally undetectable, and everybody dove in, and so nobody wanted to be in that position. It's not like any of us growing up as kids thought, dude, I'm gonna go to Europe and get, all doped up and try to win bike races. No, nobody wanted to be there. Like, we all went with pure intentions. We got there, and I'm talking about this crop of Americans that went to Europe, and the shit was messy. And we're like, whoa, like, okay, do we go home or do we stay and fight? And literally, almost everybody stayed and fought, and they fought. We fought the way that the fight was being fought, and and that all meets with where we are today, and the people who were there, I think, can speak to it. Me, my teammates, my peers, my rivals, the competition, and we have a unique perspective on it because we were in the war. But the person on Main Street, right, the corner of Main and First, wasn't there, and they don't understand it, and so they can't really speak to it. But that doesn't change the fact that they're disappointed. They're really disappointed. They're disappointed in me. They're disappointed in the sport. They might hate me. They might hate the sport. They were most likely defenders of mine, and so they're pissed off. And it's taken me a long time to really understand that. But I'll spend the rest of my life trying to work that one out with that person. And I don't, they're out there. There are millions of them. So,
well, they have a legitimate point, but there's people out there that want you to be wrong and they want to find someone who's done something bad and never let it go. Mm-hmm. And I think there's definitely some of that going on. Mm-hmm. And there's also people that they don't have a lot of sympathy for people who've been extremely successful and have made mistakes.
Yeah.
Like it gives them the green light to just decide to just continually attack you. But when I tried to do, when this whole thing was going down, is I tried to put myself in your position. Like you're this world-class biker, it's 1994, and that's right around when you started to use EPO?
95.
95?
95.
So around this time, when you realized...
By the way, that was 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Right.
It's kind of crazy, right?
Crazy.
When you realized that pretty much all the best guys were doing this now,
Yep.
what is that feeling like when you're like, okay, I've got to cross over into this deceptive territory. Now all of a sudden I have to lie about this, I have to hide this,
Right.
and I have to be a part of this sort of underground thing, this underground aspect that's a part of this great sport.
Right. Well, we held off as long as I mean, EPO came along in the early 90s. We sort of got to Europe in 92, 93. And then it by that point, by 94, it's, full on. And we're thinking, okay, this isn't good, but surely they're going to have a test for this, for EPO. And we waited, and it just never came. And then we get to 95. There's tremendous pressure on the team, within the team. We're losing the sponsor. Will the sponsor renew? The team wants results, and we're going, all right, we're really fucked here. And so we all collectively made the decision in spring of 95 that, all right, we have to go play ball.
The first time you shot that stuff, what was that like?
Now, it's not like I knew you were going to ask these questions. It's not like that. It's not that type of drug. It's not like a
No, I don't mean
like a cocaine or a. It's not.
I didn't mean it that way. I meant, was there a feeling like, fuck, we've crossed into this land of cheating?
It was so long ago. I mean, that was 21 years ago. So it's
right.
Or 20 years ago. It's a little tough to remember exactly. And also too, I mean, it wasn't as if there were other things we did before that. I mean, EPO is this hugely powerful drug, but there was, we sort of call them gateway drugs. I mean, if EPO is the meth of performance enhancing drugs, I mean, there's marijuana too. There's a lighter,
right,
sort of entry level stuff that.
Like, what was the entry? What was the first stuff?
Well, cortisone is there, and
that's
other,
just to relieve pain.
Yeah,
right?
or just yeah. I mean, it is, but it also works for racing bikes. But
how does it work for racing bikes?
Well, it's such a strong anti-inflammatory that you with that you just feel, inevitably you feel better. Whether it's physically you feel better, a certain, even just a euphoria that comes with that. That's, and who knows what,
percentage.
But at the same time, you have a drug that, I love it when in cycling, if you took cortisone, you would be banned. However, you watch, the NFL and somebody gets banged up in the first half. They go in at halftime. They come out. The announcer says they went in. They got a cortisone injection. They're going to play the second half. They rush for 100 yards. They win the game. They're a hero. It's like, wait a second.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But
it is weird. It's weird we've talked about that a bunch of times with me and my friends. Like when you go to GNC or like the UFC has this company, Muscle Farm, which sells a bunch of supplements and things along those lines, but yet they ban performance enhancing drugs. Like, well, what do these supplements do? Well, they enhance you in some way, but it's like a certain level will allow a certain level of improvement, certain level of aid in recovery, but anything past that is cheating.
Yeah. Well, it's all performance enhancing. A nap is performance enhancing.
Sure,
Vitamin
vitamins.
C, it's all. So we know that,
right?
But there also too has to be, and I don't want to be critical of whether it's the UFC's efforts to combat doping or USADA or WADA or anybody or any major sport. You have to draw the line somewhere.
Right.
That's just, and I get asked that all the time because people get frustrated with the issue and they kind of throw their hands up and say, well, look, it should just all be legal. And you know, they said that to me, and they're thinking I'm going to go, yeah, you're right. But you can't, that's not the answer either. There has to be a structure in place. There has to be a line. That line might seem weird or fuzzy to people sometimes, but you have to have something. And so, dude, it's tricky. I mean, anytime you mix athletes that are super motivated with money, with pressure that comes with that, temptation that comes with that, you know, people for the rest of, I mean, come on, I mean, the original Olympic Games, it was going on. So it's you have to think that it's going to happen forever. The substances will change over time, but just unfortunately that's part of the game.
So the original riders, like way back in the early days of the Tour de France, before they had drugs, they were using alcohol.
You know, there's a lot of stories about whether it's alcohol, cocaine, I mean, crazy substances. But at the same time, you had guys. The Tour de France is 100 years old, right? So doping is cheating. We know that. But there's other ways. I mean, guys would hang on to cars. Guys would get in trains.
Really?
There were guys. They would take a cork out of a wine bottle, and they would put. This is fucking crazy. They would have fishing string in the cork, right? So wired up, and they would have it. You know, they'd have a car up the road, and they'd put it in their teeth.
Oh my God!
And it would be, you know, just a subtle pull. I mean, they, you know, any way to get ahead. I mean, this is, you know, the sport is just it's a brutal sport, and you're not getting your face pounded in like UFC, but you certainly feel like you're getting your face pounded in.
Well, almost psychologically, it's almost more devastating because it's so grinding. When you're talking about something that goes 3 weeks and goes, is it 2,200 or 2,500 miles? Is that what it is?
About 2,500.
That's insane. That's an insane amount of time to be pushing your body.
100 miles a day. But once you get to the top level, it's remarkable how efficient it is. I mean, you have 200 guys going down the road. On a normal day, if it's a flat day and there's not wind or crosswind or rain or, you know, the conditions, it's pretty easy, to be honest. I mean, it's conversational. The final is tough, and the final gets fast, and people are competing for the stage win. But it's not... You know, those 3 weeks aren't like 3 weeks on the line. I mean, in the red line.
So you have to pace yourself.
The peloton paces itself. Like, they sort of pace and police, for lack of a better word, itself.
And then
obviously the mountains and the time trials.
Right.
Or where the race is decided, and those are the hardest moments.
When they first started introducing things like when they started using transfusions and things along those lines, how much of an improvement did it have on the times?
Well, you know, it's hard to say because the times are, you know, people look at our era, they look at my generation, and they say, okay, well, the times must be, you know, significantly faster. I mean, but you can't compare cycling to track and field or cycling to another sport that's had a rough patch and is now trying to clean itself up because technology changes, road surfaces change, obviously training has changed. But, I mean, if you go back to the '84 games right here in Los Angeles, that was really the first major exposure you had for transfusions, which the American team did, and Rolling Stone exposed it. But a transfusion is just was an old school. EPO replaced that, right? Mm-hmm. Because you had a transfusion is just adding red cells to your system, which carries oxygen and gives you more oxygen. Then you had a drug came along that did that for you, so you didn't have to extract the blood, you didn't have to put it back in. It made it a lot easier. And then when they refined the EPO test and ultimately came up with it, then people went back to the old school system. So. And then came other ways to detect that through, not so much through a test, but just through what they call the biological passport. So just studying parameters in your blood, whether it's reticulocytes or red cells or, you know, all of these things that smart people can come up with tests for. It was more of a screening method to detect a transfusion.
What's kind of fucked up about all this is that you won the Tour de France 7 times. Mm-hmm. You obviously trained like a demon, pushed yourself to the limits. You beat everyone in the competition, and they were all doing the same thing you were doing.
Right.
yet you're the one who's demonized, and yet you're the one who takes all the grief for it.
Yep. Yeah.
And there's a situation that happens when you're involved. You're involving money. You're involving sponsors. Once you first start. Once the ball starts rolling, and the first deception has been launched out there into the ether.
Yep.
There's no way to take it back if you want to keep racing.
Yep. And that's the thing. I mean, people. Look, I mean, my story, and I hear you loud and clear, and you can say that. I can never say that. You know, if I were to say things like that, people would nuke me.
But it is what it is.
It is what it is. But that's anyhow. There was the doping, okay, which led to the lying, right, which led to the treatment of other people. I think by and large, people can have the perspective that you have. They can say, "Look, looks to me like everybody did it." So, okay. Then they can look to the line, and that's where they really start to not like it. They say, this guy lied to us repeatedly. But of course, you get, there's no defense to that, but if I could share any personal insight, I mean, once you lie once, you just keep lying, you keep lying. It's not as if I'm going to sit here, if this is 15 years ago, and Joe, you're a nice guy, and if I was on this podcast, I would have lied to your fucking face 1,000,000 times, just so you know. I would have.
Just so you know.
Just so you know. But that's not a surprise to you or anybody else. But once you're in there, it's not as if I'm going to go, this guy Joe seems like a really nice guy. I think I'm going to be honest with him.
It's too much money. There's no
way.
way.
You can't. Once
can't.
that. Yeah. So
No.
I was stuck, for lack of a better word, in that lie or that deception. But then the way that I took my competitive nature, which served me well in training and in racing, and took it into the real world, took it into a press conference, took it into a personal relationship, took it into former teammates, my relationship with, that's the part where people go, okay, fuck this guy forever.
Right.
I'm done. And so that, you got sort of the three phases. None of them are good, but as it got further away, that, lack of respect for others is the thing that totally fucked me. And, to that, I would say to anybody that I understand, and I may be in their timeout forever. I have, and the only thing I will add that may sound like I'm trying to defend myself is I've tried to make amends with all those people, right? The ones that we all know, the ones people talk about. I've traveled the world. I've sat with them. I've looked them in the eyes and said, what I did was totally unacceptable, and I'm sorry. And almost everybody has accepted the apology, and we've moved on. But that doesn't get to this crowd of people that you can't sit with face to face, and you can't say you're sorry. I mean, I can talk to you. We can talk about it. Some people may view that as an apology or not, but the ones that I could go sit with, I did, and so that's all that I would add to that. I mean, I'm proud that most of those people, and I say most, not everybody, because not everybody's ready, but most of those people said, you know what, we're good, we're done. And so if it was my son and he acted that way, first of all, I'd say, what the fuck are you doing? You can't act that way. But I had nobody was standing over me going, dude, right. You're acting like an asshole. Nobody did that. So, but if my son did that, I would say, you get over there and you make it right with that person. So that's where it is, and here we go.
You're also in this bizarre position at the time to be the only famous cycler in the entire country.
Cyclist.
Cycler? Isn't that it?
No, that's a
cycler is cycling drugs.
Oh,
cyclist.
Biker.
But a biker is like Sons of Anarchy.
And that's, yeah. I kind of got burned out on that series. But, yeah.
I mean,
the story,
a lot of weight to carry around.
Yeah.
And then there's the cancer organization, there's Livestrong.
All of it.
There's a lot of weight you're carrying around.
I speak to it all the time. I mean, it was a huge wave.
But you're also balancing out so much good with this lie, and this lie is helping all this good.
Right.
Like the Livestrong Foundation is generating hundreds of millions of dollars, helping all these people with cancer. I've seen you in the hospitals with these kids, and it makes me having kids myself, it makes me cry.
Yep.
Seeing these kids with face masks on because their immune system's so compromised, and they don't have any hair, and they're just devastated.
Yep.
and you're hanging out with these kids, and you're generating all this positive energy for them, generating all this money, all this research that's being funded. So
Yep.
there's all this good as well. You start telling the truth, that stops.
Well, we know what happens because it happened.
Yeah, it did happen.
It happened, and
It
we know.
dried up. I don't see any of those fucking bracelets anymore.
No,
Remember
so
those goddamn things were everywhere.
yeah, they were. We had a good run, man. 85 million bracelets.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, I don't want anybody to be mistaken. My interests were selfish. I mean, I was defending myself and protecting myself. But at the same time, it wasn't just myself I was protecting. I was protecting the sport. I was protecting our sponsors. I was protecting the tour. I was protecting the foundation. And you know, it's just hard to say I'm gonna stop. And what we just said, I mean, we now know on all of those things, right? We know what's happened to the foundation. We know what's happened to the sport. We know what's happened to the sponsor. We know, and we can now see. It was a devastating toll, and you know, most would say, well, that's all your fault, Lance, and maybe they're right, but it's been, you know, it especially on the foundation side, dude. It breaks my heart to see that the effect it's had on their effectiveness.
Well, it's got to be way more complicated than it's just all your fault. It's way more complicated because when you're talking about an entire sport that's dirty, I mean, for lack of a better word, an entire sport that's being deceptive, an entire sport that's using these performance-enhancing drugs, and then you're talking about you because you're this weird outlier. You're this one guy who is incredibly successful at it in a country where nobody gave a fuck about the Tour de France until you came along. I mean, there's Greg LeMond and you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's
yeah.
I mean, that's it.
This is the, I mean, the story, and the story being what it was, a cancer survivor that comes back, that wins this event, that transcends the sport, that brings the sport to cycling. Although Greg did do, I mean, a tremendous job. Really, that was like the first blow up of cycling in the United States. And then comes my story. I mean, the story was too big, right? I mean, and that's the reason that you know, that incentivized and motivated people like Nowitzki and like the feds to come along and say, oh,
100%. 100%. I mean, they're not doing that to save the world. They're not doing that to save the children. No matter what ulterior motives that they might, you know, try to list as, well, we wanted to make sure that children don't do this. We wanted to send a great message. Bullshit. It's a high profile, high publicity avenue for them to achieve notoriety.
Yeah, but right, and we'll get into that. But the you know, my rivals, so if you take, you know, my main rivals, whether it's Jan Ullrich or Basso or Baloki or Pantani, or, you know, their star factor, for lack of a better phrase, was just different. And they weren't cancers. It wasn't, so there was this disparity, which the sport enabled there to be, because it's just kind of an old school, janky sport in terms of the way it's organized and run as a business, that it was like a, you know, like a South American economy. There was really the haves and the have-nots, and
that's a crazy way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, when you have something like that, it doesn't work. And so what you need to, you know, all of those ships need to rise with that sea. And I probably didn't do a good enough job trying to push for that in my time.
But don't you have only a certain amount of resources? I mean, one of the things that I've always said about extreme winners is there's a borderline between greatness and madness, and it crosses back and forth.
Yeah.
I always say that greatness and madness are next door neighbors, and they borrow each other's sugar.
Yeah.
Because there's almost no way you can get that good without almost losing your fucking mind.
Yeah.
Right? I've met some people that are fantastic at things. The great ones. I've met great ones, especially great fighters, and they're all fucking crazy.
Yeah.
It's almost like you can't not be, because you can't be a regular guy and get there.
Right. I probably was. Yeah. I probably still am a little crazy.
Oh, you're crazy. I can tell. You're definitely crazy. No, but I don't think you're bad. I don't think you're a bad guy. I mean, I don't know you that well,
Yeah.
but I just think you have to have that sharpness.
Yeah.
You have to have that grit. You have to have that aggressive, competitive nature in order to succeed, especially in some fucking thing where everyone's doing the same thing. There's not a lot of creativity involved. There's not a lot of variables. You're fucking pushing yourself, yourself. You're pumping your legs. That's it. You can't fake to the left and go to the right. You can't fucking throw up some new move that no one's ever seen before. You're fucking pushing yourself.
We had some of those.
Yeah, you definitely had some of those. But at the end of the day, you're on a fucking bike, and everybody else is on a bike, and you're going up the goddamn same hill.
Right. And there were no secrets.
Right.
That's the
that concentrates down what the competitive nature is to like the edge. Who's got the sharper edge? Who's more intense? And you won because of that.
He's getting riled up.
I get riled up,
dude. I'm gonna step back. Don't jump across this table.
I mean, isn't that what it is?
I got a big old kettlebell over here that I'm gonna swing at you if you come over here. Just settle down.
Isn't that what it is, though?
Yeah.
I mean, that it has to be what it is. It's the only way to win.
Yeah, it's an endurance event, so you have to be a little careful with that. But there are those moments where you just have to unleash everything you have, and you can unleash them in training or in racing, and but yes.
That seems like a really good point where you just put that up. You have to be careful with that. You have to know when to put, like how you have to know your body, like really intimately as far as, and you have to manage it over the course of many days.
Say the marathon. I mean, nobody takes off and like it's a 100-yard dash. I mean, you have to manage. You obviously you have the experience of knowing what that effort is going to look and feel like, and you know how to manage all of that. But I mean, 3 weeks long, man. You got to be careful.
Yeah. Is there a moment where you remember, like during a race, where you wanted to push but you had to back down? Like is there moments where you're managing your body?
Because I didn't have it?
Well, yeah, where you feel like this is not a smart thing to go.
Yeah.
And
now you can. I mean, when we raced, well, in the old days, people just trained and they thought, well, I'm going to go hard today and I'm going to go easy tomorrow.
Right.
And then it came the heart rate monitor, and they followed their heart rate, and they managed their training and racing through that. And then came the power meters, and then so now there's all these there are these devices where you can really monitor all of that stuff. And so you're out there, you're not just sort of driving around blind. I mean, you actually can see what you're doing, and that makes managing that effort a lot easier.
What are the differences in numbers? Like if you go back to like 100 years ago, well, assuming that people weren't using corkscrews or corks and fishing line and whatever other ways they were cheating, like what is like a realistic difference between the early days of winning and today?
You have to look at modern cycling. I mean, you have to look at when the bike basically got to the bikes and the wheels, and these things got to where they are today, and they're fast now. I mean, these guys are fast, and that's two things have happened. Number one, my story got exposed, and so then people question everybody, whether it's Chris Froome, who won the Tour de France this year, or somebody that wins the World Championships. They question them because of me, and then they say, well, okay, he's dirty. Seems like everybody's dirty, so you must be dirty. And then they go to the times, right? They look at my times in the Tour de France, or they look at the Peloton's times, and they see now that the times are actually either the same or better. So they say, well, then of course that supports my argument that you're dirty.
Does it?
Well, if it's fat, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the answer to that, and I get asked all the time, what's going on now, or I said, I have no idea. I mean, I'm so far removed from cycling that I have no earthly idea of what's going on or not going on. But I don't think it's necessarily fair to blame those guys. I understand it, but shit. I mean, you could have these athletes might be a lot better. The training might be a lot better. I do think technology, the bikes, the wheels, even road surfaces are a lot better. And so,
is there any part of you that's kind of pissed off that there are performance enhancing drugs? Like if there was nothing, and if it just had to be mono a mono.
Same result.
You would have the same result.
I would have this. It is my belief that the results would be the same.
There would be a few seconds slower, or whatever it would be.
It doesn't matter if the overall time's slower. What matters is if you were 5 minutes ahead of the next guy. That's what matters.
That's what matters.
That's my belief. But there are others that don't hold that belief. There are others that say no. I mean, doping affects other individuals differently, and you might have won 2, or you might have won none.
Well, that means that some people weren't doping correctly. But look, once you're doping, if you're doping and the other guy's doping better than you, like, well, then you're not doing your job doping. You're not being a good competitive doper.
No, he's like Bill.
But I mean, that's really what it is, right? I mean, doesn't it make sense?
It gets complicated, and we would talk forever, and people would argue with us forever about that. So
yeah, but they're not here. I mean, just
they are.
They're listening.
They're here.
But my perspective is really clear on that. I mean, I think if you have a sport where everybody's, and we were both talking about the Bill Burr thing that he did on Conan, which is like, yeah, our psychopath was better than your psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really what it is. You can't say that. I mean, how could they take away? This is one of the things that drove me the craziest about this. Like, what did they do with the 7 years where you won, where they said you're not the winner anymore? Right. Well, who the fuck won it then?
That's. Yeah.
And how do you find the guy who won it?
Joe, that's a problem.
What's in the record books now?
It's empty.
Empty.
So that's
it's empty for 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
And look, I agree with you, but you can say that. I cannot say that. All I will say is that I don't think it's far be it from me to talk about what's fair or not fair, but I don't think it's fair for the sport to leave those empty. I think that's crazy. And compare and contrast. So in the Tour, you have the yellow jersey, who's the guy who wins. You have the polka dot jersey, who's technically the best climber. And then you have the green jersey, who's technically the best sprinter. Those 7 years were, the green jersey was won by Zabel, who admitted to having doped all 7 of those years. The polka dot jersey was won by Virenque from France, who admitted to having doped all those years. Those all stand. Everything's still there.
That's hilarious.
But the yellow jersey has been erased. Second place, third place, all those places are still there. The years prior to me where somebody had admitted or was caught, all still there.
So there's just an asterisk in first place.
If you go to Wikipedia, there's just a line through it. Yeah.
That's so strange.
So that's the word, man. It's strange. It's very strange, and it's strange for me, and it makes me sad because, look, I'm gonna be honest. I believe I won the races. And I think
no, you did win the races. No, you won the races.
The people to ask are the ones that got beat.
Yeah.
So if you ask them, right? If you ask Jan, if you ask Zula, if you ask Below, if you ask any of them, they say he won those bike races. And so, man, Do
you still have those yellow jerseys in your house, or do you have to give them back?
No.
Good. Fuck them. You should put up an Instagram picture of them every day.
That was. Yeah. I'm not going to put that picture up again. But
that was a great picture, though, of you chilling on the couch with 7 yellow jerseys on your wall.
I got nuked for that one.
Well, you're going to get nuked no matter what you do.
Yeah. Look, look. I mean, they're up.
Yeah,
they're up, and I'm proud of them. I really am, and I'm proud of. And that's the thing too, is that as weird as it is and as strange as it is, that there's just a line through those years as if they did not happen.
Yeah.
Man, I was paid to do a job, right? As messy as the job was, whatever, I was paid to do it, and I did it. And I wanted to win. I wanted to capture those memories for myself and for my teammates. And nobody can take those away from me. I still hold those memories to myself. And it's had a complicated ending, but I still view those as victories, and I still view those memories as good.
The carrying around the lie and being interrogated and questioned, and was that the hardest part about all of it?
I was only interrogated or questioned with the press, and even, God, if it would have been in this day and age with Twitter and Facebook and social media, and it would have been 1,000 times worse. I mean, this was, this was in the late 90s. I mean, think about that. That was a long time ago, and so the level of scrutiny, while it was high, wasn't nearly as high as it would have been today. But yeah, I mean, once you dig in, with these guys, you're stuck. So
Once you finally came clean, I mean, obviously there was a lot of blowback, but was there also a relief?
Not immediately. Not immediately. I mean, I get asked that a lot, and I think people expect me to say, well, you know, it was this huge relief off your shoulders when you talk to Oprah or whatever you did, that you can now move forward and live the life of an honest man, and et cetera, et cetera. But it's taken me. Let me just sum it up. I mean, sitting here today having this conversation, I would much prefer to have this conversation than the one where I would have lied to your fucking face 15 times 10 years ago. I'd much rather us talk like this. So that's a relief. But it you know, it's not like I walked out of sitting with Oprah and was like, oh my God, I feel amazing. I mean, that was an ass whipping. And so.
What was it like sitting there with Oprah? She's drilling you, asking you questions.
How about that start? She came out hot.
Yeah, she came out hot. Yes or no?
Yes or no?
She only wanted yes or no.
Yeah, I thought she did a good job.
She did a great job.
I thought she did a good job. I thought
it was very compelling.
Yep.
Because the way she structured the beginning part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to do something like that on television, you want to capture people and keep them there. Yeah. You kind of have to approach it that way.
I thought she did a good job. I know that it wasn't well received, In
what way? You mean people didn't like you afterwards in that way? It
yeah,
wasn't well received.
Well, I think there's two things. Number one, I wasn't emotionally ready to do that interview. I wasn't in a place where I think that I sit today, where it is a position of contrition and understanding the tremendous sense of betrayal that's out there. Like my perception of that today is much sharper than it was 3 years ago when I sat with her. The feds and other lawsuits forced my hand. I had to sit there with that because I knew I was going to be sitting with her or with you or with Tom Brokaw, or I was going to be sitting with a government lawyer, being deposed, being videoed, and being leaked. So I said, well, I'm going to find the place that I'd rather sit down and talk about this, as opposed to a grainy video that the government leaks to the world. And that's your coming out party. So I did that. But the thing about Oprah is aside from me just not being ready at the time to do it, you know, people sensed that. But most importantly, for the diehard cycling fans and sports fans, I didn't say enough. You didn't name names. You didn't call anybody out. It wasn't detailed enough. You're holding back. You're protecting people. That's what they said. That's a very small percentage of the population. For the majority of the population, those first 5 minutes was way too much information. They were like, what the fuck did I just hear? Like blood bags, EPO, testosterone, transfusions, cheating. It was way too much. So you had people that were one camp, a smaller camp, said, he didn't say enough. He's holding back here. The other camp was like, all right, that's more than I needed to hear. And so everybody was pissed.
But I don't know why they would think it's too much. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand that logic because it is reality.
Dude, you're a grandma in Duluth?
Right.
And you supported the cancer survivor
Santa Claus isn't real?
Yeah, and you hear that? I mean, you're sitting there going, I don't like anything about this.
So so I see, because they were also supporting Live Strong. And they were also supporting the cancer survivor. Yeah. How much of an effect did it have, like almost immediately, on your foundation?
I don't know, because I was asked to leave the foundation before that, and I haven't been back. So I don't know, and I don't ask.
Is it still around?
Yeah.
But it must have taken a devastating hit.
I think so. I mean, it takes a hit in terms of, obviously in terms of fundraising, which directly leads to its effectiveness in terms of helping create change for cancer survivors all around the world. You need to raise money in order to do that. Staff layoffs, I mean, you name it. I mean, but I don't have specifics, because once I left the board and left the organization and they legally changed the name, I mean, I don't know.
None of it was shocking to me. I mean, I didn't know, but I knew that I have a friend who is a professional cycler. Just say his name's John. Cyclist. Sorry.
We're going to get this right. Okay, people.
I'm going to write it down. Cyclist.
Cycling 101.
Cyclist. Yeah.
He's a biker.
It's like people say the ultimate fighting challenge. It's championship.
See, I would say that.
Yeah,
But
challenge.
okay,
It's
yeah.
okay. My friend John was a professional cyclist.
Yep.
And this was 2000, maybe three, four. And he told me, he was like, "Listen, man, we're all on it." He goes, "Guys would get off the bus in the middle of the night. You'd hear them taking off their bikes and going for a ride because their blood got too thick."
There are those old stories.
Yeah, that's from EPO, right?
That's yeah. I've heard those stories. I never saw that, but
Well, so my friend John, I mean, maybe he was on a crazy team or something like that.
but
and
back in the day, no, that
Yeah.
before they.
got it dialed in.
Well, what happened was there was no test, right? So
Right.
no sport had a test, whether it's cycling or swimming or
Or even
running
boxing.
or whatever
Yeah.
sport is using EPO. They didn't have a test for EPO, and so they and with one of the side effects of EPO or increasing your red cell count is your blood. It's literally a question of viscosity, right? So your oil
Like
and your
motor oil.
yeah. Well, that's the only time you ever think of the word viscosity, right?
Yeah.
Is your motor oil. But more red cells means thicker blood. If your blood's too thick, we know what happens. It isn't a good thing. And so the sport had to they couldn't test for it. The science wasn't there yet. So they went to these sort of preventative screening methods, right? So then they started testing the viscosity or the thickness of people's bloods, otherwise known as hematocrit, right? And so they would use that as a screen. Anybody above 50% hematocrit couldn't race. You weren't positive. You didn't get banned, but you were put on the side for 2 weeks as a health measure. Anyone under 50% was fine to race. So everybody took that before that, there were people that were 60, 64%. Those guys might be getting up in the middle of the night going for a little spin.
Yeah.
But at 50, they deemed that sort of the healthiest level, But people pushed it right up to 50 then.
There's some side effects and there's some possible potential health risks as far as like strokes and things along those lines,
I'm
right?
sure.
Did anybody that was on the tour ever drop dead from EPO?
Well, there was, look, there are, I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of documented cases, especially in the 80s, right when EPO, I guess, was first hitting the scene. There was this wave of Dutch cyclists that passed away in the night, and
In the night, huh?
in their sleep.
And that's probably when it would happen.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I didn't
Well,
I didn't do the autopsy,
Right.
and nobody. I don't know if anybody's ever proven that, but that sort of. I don't want to say that was the myth, but that was that EPO, the drug, took the blame for those deaths, and so it hasn't happened since, and it didn't happen in our generation, but I don't know.
But my point being that it can be fairly dangerous.
Well, if your blood, you can imagine
Yeah.
if it gets too thick,
So
that would not be.
one of the things that it didn't surprise me that when you came clean, I was like, well, good for him. That was really what I thought. I was like, it's kind of fucked up that he was lying all this time, and it's kind of fucked up that he was suing people that were saying that he was telling lies. But one of the things that shocked me the most when I was thinking about it was that you had recovered from cancer. You had one of your testicles removed. You had brain surgery. You had lung cancer. I mean, your body was ravaged by this, and yet you still were taking drugs.
Yep.
That's what got me. I was like, what a crazy desire to win. That you got to this place where your body was, you were on death's door, and recover from it, and then put yourself back in risk.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, saying it like that, there's no justifying that other than I was in this sport that I really wanted to be in and stay in, and after the disease, I wanted to go back to, and that was the landscape, and so you viewed it, you thought, okay, this is not ideal, but you asked the question, what am I really, knowing my health history, right, with cancer, with all that I went through, is going back to my sport and taking EPO a risk to my disease or to my health? And the answer to that, obviously, my answer to myself was no.
You really didn't think that it was a risk to push your body like that and to put all these. I mean,
Stuff.
They're in a lot of ways they're pushing your body in an unnatural way or to an unnatural level. Testosterone and human growth hormone and EPO and all these.
And that's
changing.
and that's the only difference that was made was, I mean, I had a slight experience with growth hormone before the disease, and then after the diagnosis and the treatment and the recovery, I said, okay, that does not sound like a good idea
Because it's too dangerous.
Yeah, and perhaps in my own fucked up way, I was thinking, well, that would lead to the growth of
tumors,
of a malignant cell, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I didn't view those two the same. Plus, I don't think HGH is for cycling. I don't think it's very effective. Anyways, I think it's a waste.
Did you alter your diet?
Well, for sure, yeah.
Like
but
what changes did you make when you came back from having cancer?
Man, and again, this is the stuff that we can talk about. I talked about forever, and and it's almost sort of mocked now, because we talked about the change in diet and the increased, intensity of training and the reconnaissance and the technology and the wind tunnel, and we did all of those things, and they all worked, But I say they're mocked now because people now know the truth. We all know the truth, and people say, "Oh, he told us it was all that other bullshit. He told us it was the training. He told us it was his diet."
Right.
Well, now we know it was just the doping.
Well, it wasn't though. It was the doping end.
That was the final piece.
Yeah.
Which just was unfortunate, and it was, as we've said numerous times, it was unfortunate and it was inevitable. But that was the final piece, and it was also the piece that we never talked about, of course.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
See, this is the weight you're carrying around. So when I'm asking you about your diet, I literally didn't know that you had discussed this ad nauseum.
Yeah.
So you're carrying this around. You're always assuming that people have heard
if you look at me racing in '96 before I was diagnosed, and then you look at me winning the Tour in '99, I mean, there's 20 pounds difference. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I had this when I got out of sort of my cancer mission, and recovered and took a year and a half away and went back. I viewed racing bikes as life and death. I viewed my disease as a competitive event, as a sporting event. It's me versus the opposition, looking at the scoreboard, how we doing. And then when I got back on the bike, it was like life and death. And so everything was intensified. Starving yourself, training your ass off, just being, as you said a minute ago, just being generally fucking totally crazy for a result. Mad. Not mad, but madness.
You were starving yourself to be lighter?
Yeah. That's part of it. I mean, these poor guys now, I mean, they're a lot skinnier than we were. I mean, this is guys riding 5-6 hours a day and not eating. I mean, it fucking sucks.
How do they do it?
You don't eat.
Just deal with it.
Just go to bed hungry.
Wow. Just to keep your body weight light.
It's all power to weight.
I wish you were still. I would like to know what the fuck these guys are doing now. I would like to know when you see guys with faster times and really ridiculously stringent drug testing.
Yeah, well, anytime I go anywhere near that, I just get destroyed because I don't know, the people view it as me accusing them. I mean, I've made, because I get a lot of questions, so I'll tweet back, say, don't ask me, I have no idea. People take that as saying, well, he just blamed them, he just accused them of doing the same shit. And I feel bad for those guys, man. I feel bad for any top level rider that is racing their bike in 2015 and has to answer questions about a guy from 1999. Like if I was winning in 99, or what is that, 16 years, if somebody asked me a question about somebody from 1983, I said, what the fuck are you talking about? Don't ask me that question. Like, why are you asking me about some dude 20 years ago? Well, I'm here today. So, but well,
that's the craziest thing about you in the sport. Yeah. Like, you're inexorably tied to it. There's no way to pull it away from you.
Yeah.
Like, that scandal was one of the, at least in the United States, was one of the biggest aspects of that sport ever.
It's still, I mean, any story that gets written, I mean, I don't know if you follow track and field or all of this stuff that came out of
Ben Johnson. That's
Well,
all everybody will
that's the
talk
old
about.
old story.
Yeah.
But there was just this revelation that came out of International Track and Field and the Russian Federation and the covers ups there and all of those stories that get written, whether it's on Deadspin or the New York Times or on Twitter, they all reference this story as well.
Yeah.
So you get put back, which is, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it brings people back to that, to my history.
Yeah, it's baseball and Barry Bonds. It's just they're tied. There's just no way you're gonna separate the two of them together.
Yeah.
It's got to be a very bizarre thing for those people that are racing.
Ask them. Yeah, you should. Yeah.
I don't want to.
You don't want to ask
Nobody
them.
knows who they are.
Yeah, I know.
That's the most fucked up thing about it. It's like you're like, I mean, in a way, like Tony Hawk is the only skateboarder I've ever heard of.
Right.
It's the only. I mean, I'm sure I've met a few other ones, but I don't remember their names.
Yeah.
But Tony Hawk is that guy. Like,
Yep.
you think of skateboarding, you think of Tony Hawk.
Right.
You think of bike racing, you think of Lance Armstrong.
Yep.
And now that
You think of swimming, you think of Michael Phelps.
there's just a few. Well, Greg LeMond is a diver. You think of him, I guess. He's kind of a swimmer. But there's not
Greg
a lot
LeMond's
of names.
Greg LeMond's
No,
a cyclist.
what's the other guy? Greg
Louganis.
Louganis. Sorry.
Dude,
I don't pay attention.
at
Sorry.
least you said cyclist.
I did. I'm getting better. Greg LeMond's probably like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's weird when you have a sport that's where the public locks onto one person and they don't know any of the other people in it. Like if it's football, there's like fucking hundreds of guys. Whether it's
Hundreds.
boxing, hundreds of guys. But with cycling, there's just so few.
Yep.
And you carrying the weight of that sport in the United States and trying to popularize it, and as well as holding on to this lie.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Dope. Yeah. I mean, that when I hear you say that, I mean, it, and you may not be defending me, but it sounds as if you're defending me. So I don't necessarily want that. I mean, I don't.
I'm not defending you.
Right.
What I'm doing is I'm trying to illuminate reality in a pretty objective way.
Well, you can, do that on your next podcast because
Okay.
me sitting here right now, people.
It makes you uncomfortable?
No, it doesn't make me uncomfortable, but I'm of the belief that nobody wants to hear that shit. That there's still, I think people are upset. I know they're upset, and so.
Some people do. I mean, look, you're going to have people that are upset. I think what we're dealing with when it comes to the internet is just a gigantic number of people.
Yeah.
There's too many people to like say some people want this, some people. You can't manage it.
Yeah.
We're doing hundreds of millions of people who can get on their Facebook or get on their Twitter and just start giving their input right now, and that's never happened before. And when that happens, you're going to be understandably sensitive to the outcome.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
What was the blowback like? Like when you did the Oprah thing and then you just went out into the public? Did you just try to lay low for a while?
Yeah, I tried to. Well, there were several variations of quote unquote blowback. There was just the public's perception. So if I walked down the street, which I have to admit was better than I expected. Right? Nobody. It's not as if I left talking with Oprah and I walked out on the street and people were throwing shit at me. I mean that's never happened. Could happen one day, but it hasn't yet. There's the blowback, which is the most important part, which is the way my kids were treated. I've got 5 kids, 3 older ones. I was very concerned with what they heard in the hallways. What they saw on their social media stuff. What does that news do to them? That is the most important thing, and a real credit to the city of Austin and the schools that they go to and our community and their friends and the kids in the school. Very little blowback. So that was, for me, that was like the biggest relief. Like people can throw shit at me and say shit all day long, but if my kids were treated roughly, I mean, that would break your heart, wouldn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it'd be devastating.
Yeah, that'd be by far the worst. So that was very fortunate that was not seamless. I mean, there was some stuff, but they managed it and we managed it and the community managed it pretty well. And then there was the legal blowback, which was pretty nasty. I mean, I got, as soon as I stepped off the stage with Oprah, call it a stage, the lawsuit just piled up. I mean, and piled up big. So
And how many of them are still ongoing right now?
there's one.
Just one.
One.
The federal government one?
The federal case.
And the federal
But
case.
there were, and some of them were highly publicized, and some were not. Some the team was insuring all of my salaries and all of my bonuses, unbeknownst to me. And so, because they didn't have the money. And so when this goes down, all of these companies came back and said, "Where's our money?" And I said, "Well, who are you?" I said, "Well, so the team." I knew about one situation, right? The big one, the SCA case, which has been settled since. But there were many, many others, and some were public, some were private, but they all had to get settled. And so we've navigated that landscape, and now we're just down to the postal case, the federal case.
And when is that going to be resolved?
That's a good question. It's been going on a long time, and it came on the heels of a 2 or 3 year criminal investigation, which you're well aware of through Jeff Nowitzki and through the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Los Angeles. So once that case was closed, then the civil division picked up the postal case, and it's been ongoing for years. And we've sort of finished that first phase of litigation, and it'll go to trial maybe a year from now in Washington, D.C.
Well, we talked about this very briefly before the podcast. We wanted to kind of save it for the podcast. I don't understand the criminal investigation. I don't understand the allocation of resources towards someone who was bike racing. I feel like in a world where we have bankers that caused this gigantic 2008 financial collapse, where we have pharmaceutical companies who are making billions of dollars getting people hooked on OxyContins, when we have crime and murder and all the fucking problems we have in this culture, to spend taxpayers' dollars on bike racing, a guy who may have cheated or definitely cheated in a sport where everybody's cheating, that seems kind of fucked up.
Well, you can, it's McCarthyism. I mean, you can have, first of all, cyclists don't have any lobbyists. Nobody's out protecting us, whatever we did or didn't do in Europe 20 years ago. The banks do, Big Pharma does, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of a good old boys club that we're not a part of. But, and we've talked about this offline, I mean, when you have a federal agent in a guy like Nowitzki who's made his career with these types of cases, whether it's Balco or Bonds or Marion Jones, when you have a guy like that all of a sudden is interested, it's going to happen. And when you have that particular agent or any agent that walks in to interview a witness or interview an old teammate with a badge and a gun, they're talking.
Yeah, it gets weird, right?
Yeah,
it's a different kind of investigation.
Yeah, it's so. Of course, I know I heard what you said. Of course, I don't think it makes much sense. But I was in the crosshairs, so people are going to say, well, of course you don't think it makes sense. But look, I mean, and I listened to your podcast with Nowitzki, and I mean, it's just there's some bullshit in there, and so.
What specifically?
I think the idea that and again, I don't work for the government. I don't work for the U.S. Attorney's Office here, but I think the idea that he was brought into the investigation, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think, and again, I don't know Jeff, but I think he looked for those cases. I mean, and whether or not, and by the way, when you're an agent for the Food and Drug Administration, I don't know how, I mean, all of these things have missions. He was an agent for the IRS, and so then that's when Balco and Bonds started. I don't know that doping in baseball is an IRS issue. I don't know that doping in cycling 20 years ago is an issue for the FDA. I mean, they regulate who makes aspirin and who gives you your lettuce and your eggs, and what does that have to do with? But I think he was opportunistic when it came to these cases, whether it's Barry Bonds or myself, and he thrived on that.
Well, I think you look at it two ways. On one hand, he certainly capitalizes on these high-profile cases. He certainly goes after them. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, him capitalizing and being the rabid investigator that he is, it highlights the issues that are going on.
Sure.
So I think the real problem is the allocation of money, like how much money is being spent on these cases. He told me that the Barry Bonds case that they only spent like $100,000. I didn't expect that I didn't question them, and I didn't research it
Right.
beforehand. I didn't know that was even going to come up. But then once I did research it, it seems like it was a fuckload more money than $100,000.
Yeah. Well, that's obviously that's laughable, but whatever the number was, it it wasn't 100,000, but it was probably not as much as what was reported. But hey, that's the United States of America.
Well,
that's what they get to do.
And also, you get a guy like him, and that's how these issues get highlighted. I mean, that's why we know about it, because he was so aggressive in his tactics. He was so aggressive in chasing down anybody that he thought was doing these drugs. That's why we know about these cases in such an extreme detail.
Yep. Yeah, man. It wasn't pleasant watching that or listening to that podcast. I mean, and the fact that I don't know if you're bullshitting me or not. The fact that he wanted to do the podcast with me.
Oh, he did. Yeah, he asked to do it.
What kind of crazy is that?
Well, I think he wanted to find out like how you felt about it, what it feels like now. He wants to. I mean, he's ongoing. I mean, he works right now doing drug investigations for the UFC,
right.
And he's done a fantastic job to the point where, as I was telling you before the podcast, we've seen radical changes in fighters' physiques and their performances. Guys who are world beaters have dropped off substantially. There's the word in the mixed martial arts community, when I talk to fighters, when I talk to trainers, it's had a gigantic impact, and they're terrified because they've imposed these very strict fines and probationary periods.
Yeah, and as you also said before the podcast, I mean, you have a sport where the bigger and stronger you are physically, the more you're pummeling somebody else's head in.
Yes, it's different.
It's different.
Yeah, it's different than baseball. Different. It is definitely different. I think it's much more. It's much more important.
Is the sport just as exciting?
It's pretty damn exciting. So it's hard to say if it's just as exciting or not, because I think there's a lot of great fighters who are world champions who are clean.
Okay.
It's just it's like some of the all-time greats. I mean, there's great guys right now. Frankie Edgar, clean as a whistle. Chris Weidman, very clean. Rockhold, clean. Who's the new champion in the middleweight division. There's a lot of great fighters that are clean. It's hard to tell. But there's a lot of fighters who weren't clean who are fucking awesome when they weren't clean. Vitor Belfort, who went on this wild run for at 36 years old when they had, this is one of the big problems with the UFC, was that they had legal testosterone replacement for a short period of time, for a few years. And guys were just fucking juicing to the tits.
Like it was Skittles. Oh,
they would come back with these hyperhuman levels. Like they would test them, and like a normal person in your testosterone level would be like a low 3, a high 800. Vitor was like 1,475, and he looked like a fucking silverback.
Wow. And
just hyper aggressive, super confident. That's different. That's dangerous. Right. And winning and beating guys to a pulp.
Right.
That's a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're not talking about an extreme endurance sport like that. Like that kind of aggression and explosion wouldn't benefit you in cycling because it's such a long endurance race. And also the benefit isn't the end result isn't someone's health.
Right.
Doesn't get compromised by it.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, that's, I don't know that sport that well, and I don't know what people's feeling are in and amongst the sport. I mean, you just gave a pretty good perspective on it. So more power to him there.
It's just it's messy to pull it out. It's messy because it was so pervasive. It's like if they had figured out, if the Tour, if half the guys were clean and half the guys were dirty in the Tour de France, and then they figured out how to pull the drugs out from half, it would be messy, right? Because then it'd be like, okay, well, what happened? Why were these guys doing so well and now they're not? The guys who are winning are not winning. But if the Tour seems like it's so pervasive that if they pulled the drugs out, the same guys would be winning, the times would be slower.
Right. But what happened was primarily, I guess, through Nowitzki's investigation, which when was closed, he more or less handed everything to USADA. USADA picked up the investigation, and then they acted. They gave me the lifetime ban. That left when the world reads that in 2012, it was the summer of 2012, the world reads that, the impression is, or when I do Oprah, for example, which is 3 or 4 months later, the impression is that we were hanging a blood bag 6 months ago. Like, it's a current event. It feels, although it had been 7 years before any line had ever been crossed, ever, even during the comeback. So, but it made it current. The comeback made it current for people. Nowitzki investigating, getting everybody to speak through his own tactics. It made it a current event when it really wasn't. It's like I remember sitting there in 2012 thinking, all right, this shit's going down. This is unbelievable. Being in the middle of it, being me, this is unreal. And I thought, you know, and we're talking about 1999 through 2005, but let's use 99 as an example. I remember thinking to myself, who won the Super Bowl in 99? And it was the Broncos, and Elway was the MVP. I remember thinking to myself, what if I opened the paper today and the NFL has opened a case against John Elway in 2012? I would have read that and gone, this is a joke, right? Is it April Fool's? Like, what the fuck? He's like an old guy who stands on the sideline now. Like, so it just, they were able to go way, way back and sidestep and ignore any sort of due process and statute of limitations, and they made it a current event. I'm not blaming them or defending myself. I'm just telling you what happened, and you know that. You know, it's not totally accurate, but
well, it's because it was so long. It went on for so long. Like, remember they had that Nike commercial. When you were doing that Livestrong Nike commercial, and you're riding your bike and you're talking about people calling you a doper. This is before you had come clean.
That was in 2000.
Yeah, and this is before you'd never failed any tests. There was not, but you still had to address it in a fucking Nike commercial.
Yeah.
So this was something that was
ill-advised.
Yeah, it seems right now, right?
But that's, again, I mean, all of this, whether it's agreeing to that commercial or the way you treated it, I needed, you know, somebody in my life to go, I just read this script or this storyboard, and I think that's a real bad idea.
Yeah. But did you have anybody like that in your life?
Well, clearly not.
But did anybody suggest it?
No.
No one.
But I was.
But isn't that hard though? Because you're such a fucking winner. You're like you're on top of the world. Nobody wants to say, "Hey, man, don't do that."
Dude, it's like when you're in that position, everybody's saying yes, yes,
right.
yes, fuck yes. That's a great idea. Yes, Lance. Yes, absolutely. Right now.
Yeah.
Yes. Nobody's sitting there playing the devil's advocate or saying, "I think that's a bad idea." I didn't have that North Star, man. And again, I'm not, the fucking buck stops with me, man. I should have been mature enough and worldly enough to go, bad idea. Let's make another commercial. Or bad idea, Lance. Let's say something else in the next press conference.
But it seems like the weight of it all and the air of it all was so thick that you kind of had to address it all the time because it was being thrown at you all the time. Yeah. I peripherally watched cycling, and I knew about it. Everyone knew about it.
But the more defensive I became and the more aggressive I became in the denials, all that does, right, is what it might appease some people or supporters go, did you? I heard it in his voice. I believe that. But what it really did, especially with the press, was it just made the next occasion, the next question, the next episode even more inevitable. Like it added fuel to that fire. Like looking back in hindsight, I should have just said, "Look, I'm not gonna talk about it," or whatever the answer was. But instead of saying, it was literally like, finger in your chest, fuck you, don't ask me that. I mean, that is when you're guilty. That's a real bad approach,
right?
And it's the one that I took, and quite honestly, it's probably one of the main reasons that we're sitting here today talking about this.
Why do you think you took that approach when looking back on it?
Because that is the approach that I took in training and in racing. And even, these are guys that I raced against that I liked, but I would make up reasons to fucking hate them. Like I'd read something and be like, look at this asshole. Did you read what he probably didn't even say anything. I'd take it. I'd be like, I can't believe he said, just as fuel, just as motivation. So that's all fine and good when you're training and you're racing and you're competing. But when you step off the bike, that you have to have that switch to say, okay, That's been done. You won the race. We're not going to go treat another human being that way, right? In just in a professional context or in a press context, you got to turn it off, man. And I couldn't. Like I had my finger in people's chest, on the bike, off the bike, everywhere. And so, my bad, dude. I mean, I didn't have the ability to turn that off. I mean, it's good to be a competitor, but it's not good to be too competitive.
And once you took that approach, once you started with that approach, did you feel like there was like a weight of momentum behind you, like to dig your heels in and stop it and try a new approach would be very difficult?
Well, yeah. Once it gets rolling, it's tough to alter.
What was it like with the people that you were close to? Obviously, the people that you trained with, they knew what you were doing. But what about your family and your close friends? How many of them were aware of what was going on?
I think, by and large, I don't know. I wouldn't have asked them, and they wouldn't have asked me. I think it was sort of this.
So your friends never asked, "Hey, man, come here."
I think it's more don't ask.
They never
don't,
pulled you aside.
Yeah, don't ask, don't tell.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they probably, they probably didn't. They didn't want to know.
Do you have close friends outside of cycling?
Yes.
And they didn't ask you?
Yeah. Well, no, they didn't. But
really?
Yeah. I mean, they might also ride bikes, so they're not in the sport. But
right. But
yeah, nobody
like
sort of saddled up at the bar and was like, "Dude, come on."
Really?
Yeah.
No one?
No.
Wow. That's fucking crazy. If I was your friend, dude, I would have got you fucked up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
I would have got you drunk. Like, come on, dude, we're going on a hike.
Joe would be talking about it now. He's like, I remember that time I got him all fucked up, and
no.
He admitted it.
I would have never said a word until you came out. Once you came out, then I would have told you.
Until the guy with the badge and the gun showed up, and then you would have said everything.
I would have ducked. Jeff Nowitzki?
Yeah.
No, I would have hired some lawyers. I'd be like, you guys sit with me when this guy comes in?
Yeah.
What's going on? What do you want to know?
Yeah.
About bike racing?
Nobody
I would have
did.
mocked it.
Nobody did that.
Bike racing? Like a kid's bike? You have a gun? Someone stealing bikes? No. They're killing people with bikes? The fuck's going on with that gun? Yeah.
What happens in these podcasts when the interviewee has to take a leak?
You go take a leak, man. Don't worry about it.
What happens to the podcast?
We'll just pause it for a second.
What about the people at home?
I'll talk to them. Don't worry about it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're also here, too.
Yeah, don't worry about it, man. Go take a leak. It happens all the time. It's no big deal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all the time. Don't
All
sweat
right,
it.
well, I'm going to go take a
Go
leak.
take a leak. Please do. It's one thing about athletes. They drink fuckloads of water. Lance is here. Pounded. He's hungover, too. He has a very specific schedule, he told me. He drinks 2 cups of coffee in the morning, then he takes a shit, then he drinks water all day, and then he waits until about 5, then he starts drinking. That's a good drug. I was going to ask him about marijuana, because if he smoked marijuana and he was holding in all those lies, that shit would fuck with you. Like, I'll smoke some weed, and I'll think about a lie I told in high school, and it'll fuck with me. It really will. I'll think about some shit that I did in high school and it'll make me go, oh, why the fuck did I say that? Like that's one of the crazy things about marijuana. It never lets you forget. It'll bring those things up that you're trying to hide. But alcohol's like, don't worry about it, pussy. Alcohol is the best drug if you're trying to hold back a lie. Just throw that down. And as soon as you can't walk straight, you're thinking about that. As soon as you're thinking about the song that's playing, you're thinking about your whatever. You're thinking about other things. It's a good close your focus drug, whereas pot is the opposite. Pot is a open your focus. This is fascinating, though, isn't it, Jamie?
You forget you have a secret.
Yeah, you forget. You don't give a fuck about your secrets. I mean, that's why people make horrible sexual decisions when they're drunk. I mean, it's also why people think that people that are drunk you shouldn't have sex with someone who's drunk, even if you're drunk. I mean, that's why the crazy feminists try to say that that's rape. That if a man and woman have sex and they're drunk, it's rape. Well, they say it because you're obviously not exactly of sound. I mean, it depends on how drunk you are, right?
Yeah.
But at a certain level, you're certainly impaired and you can't make good decisions. It's funny, though, that a guy who's just such an athlete, lifelong athlete, fucking pounds the hooch like that. Well, I'll ask him how often he does it. We were talking about marijuana and whether or not you used marijuana while you were holding back all those lies and how it would fuck with you. Because when I was I'll get high and I'll think about some shit I lied about in high school, and I'm gonna go like, oh, paranoia, and illuminate areas of your life that you're trying to avoid. The economy of all this is a fascinating aspect of it, because there were a lot of people that were making money off of you racing. A lot of people. There was a gigantic industry. And for them to pretend that they didn't know what I knew as a fucking comedian who, again, peripherally watched cycling. You know, I'd watch you win, and I'd be like, damn, that motherfucker won again? Damn. That's it, you know? I mean, I'd never raced bikes. I never rode bikes. So for me, and I knew, you know, I'm like, how the fuck does the U.S. Post Office not know? How the fuck does Nike not know? How the fuck does... They know. They know. They know. They can pretend they don't know, but they know. If they didn't know, then they're irresponsible. That's irresponsible. But they kind of knew, and they just said, it's all right. We're getting away with it. We're getting away with it. But then, once the shit came down, then they all wanted their money back.
Yeah. Well,
that's a weird aspect. You can't talk too much about this, right?
Right. That one gets sensitive for me.
Well, the post office one.
Tricky.
The post office one. I know you can't talk about it, but can you talk about this? Is a reality when you are accused of defrauding the federal government, which is what they're saying, because you were riding for the U.S. Post Office. That was the team. And you won X amount of money during that time. They can sue you for 3 times that money.
Correct. Right. So they won $100 million. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
How's that going?
That's you know, honestly, that's the only active case. So that one does get a little trickier to talk about.
Yeah.
Just from I don't want to get crushed by my lawyers, but we like our case. We think that we're confident in the case. We believe that the Postal Service, while none of this story is perfect, we believe that the Postal Service and their own numbers support it. I mean, the Postal Service commissioned 3 separate studies to analyze the effect of the sponsorship on the team. We believe they made hundreds of millions of dollars. And we know that they were also using the team as a sales vehicle. So coming to during the tour, bringing over potential new clients, bringing over new clients that were actually converting their business to the Postal Service. We know that happened, and we know that it equaled a significant increase in revenue. So we like our case. I mean, and at this point, would I like to have all legal issues out of my life? Yes. But settlement's not an option, and so we have to just fall back on what we think is the strength of the case.
Does that, if they made a ton of money while you were being dishonest, does that exonerate you from owing them money? Like, how does that work?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but
Right.
my view of it's called a key tam case, which is a false claims case. My view is and I think is one that our side shares, is it's about damages, right? Was the Postal Service damaged?
Right.
And what can we prove to be the damages? And you know, if there are no damages, then I would like to think that there's no case. But it's it is what it is. The federal government is interested in, the Department of Justice is interested in the case, and I have no choice but to fight it. I don't have, after the dozen previous lawsuits, I'm not in a position to really cut any more checks, and so I'm in a position where I have to go fight this one out.
How do you get by financially now?
Well, the first thing that I did was and I saw this coming, knew this was going to happen, is life was big. I mean, we had 3 houses, we had a jet. I mean, we had the whole. So you just take that burn rate way down. So your overhead goes way down. And the crazy thing is if you'd have told me before, like, you're going to go sell a bunch of shit and sell your plane, I'd be like, dude, life is going to suck.
Without a plane?
well, just the house in Hawaii. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you what really happened. But I would have thought, man, this life is going to be terrible. As you take it down and you live a simpler life and you get your burn rate down, and you get it manageable, life's exactly the same. Like, I don't know. I mean, the happiness factor is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
none of that
done
shit.
studies on that. They've done studies on that.
And none of that shit. It's more convenient.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, going direct somewhere and not dealing with a terminal and fucking TSA. Obviously, that's different, but it takes a little more time. You're around more people. But I'm just as happy as I was.
Yeah, they've done studies on people that actually complicate their lives with more success,
Yeah.
more houses, more things, and it actually makes you more tense. It gives you more to think about.
Well, you gotta keep, you have to feed that beast.
Yeah.
And so you get a little bit of the dog chasing the tail going on. And, life was moving real fast for me then. And it moves a lot slower now, which I don't, it might be a little slow for my taste right now, but I didn't like it when it was that fast.
So you cut back on all the expenses,
Mm-hmm.
and what do you earn money now? Like, what do you do to earn money?
Occasionally. So I still speak, and sometimes I'm paid to speak, and then there are just other appearances. I still have some investments that help sort of ease that pain.
Mm-hmm.
But and who knows what the future holds? I don't know what if that stuff dries up forever or comes back, or who knows.
What is it like to sit while this is all going on and watching the economy of this story grow and develop?
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't just the lawsuits. There's books, there's documentaries, there's all these television shows, it's all its focus. There's ad revenue coming from those shows. There's all these people that are dedicating all this time. Like, their careers become a big part of their careers become telling the Lance Armstrong story.
Yeah, it's a small industry.
Yeah.
There was the industries that benefited on the way up, and I was one of those industries. There were the sponsors. You look at Trek bicycles, for example. Before the first tour, I think they did 125 million in sales. They do $1 billion now. So yeah, that's a big difference. So you have those sort of industries, but then on the way down. So those are all people are making money on the way up, and then on the way down, it did happen, but it's probably normal and natural that people capitalize on the way down. Look at Bill Clinton. As he's going through everything he went through, believe me, there were plenty of people going, all right, now it's my turn to make some money. And fair play. That's just the way it is. And some people may think that's BS, but shit. Everybody was hopping on the way down.
Well, they have to, right?
Yeah.
It is a gigantic story. Now, your friends didn't know what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
When it came out, how many of them had a hard time with it? How many of them were cool with it? Like, what was it like?
Some. Obviously the people the sponsors fled.
Right. Did any of them stay?
No.
None.
No,
How many
no.
did you have at a time?
Maybe 10. But they have to leave, right?
Right.
Some of them are
Right.
publicly traded companies, so they have concerns about that. Some of them are just covering their ass, whatever. But they're all gone. And friends are interesting. You have. Just use the foundation as an example, right? I was on the board. I was the chairman of the board. I was the founder. The board was my friends. But these are the friends that say, okay, you're out. And so I get it that there might be a strategic reason for that. But then when you never hear from these, then all of a sudden these people disappear from your life. The way I sum it up is anytime anybody goes through anything, and I don't know if you've had some heavy shit in your life, but when you're going through it, people either lean in or they lean out. And some people lean out, which means they run away, and you're surprised by that. And you're like, what the fuck? That guy was at every champagne party we threw in Paris. And,
Right.
And now he's like, I haven't heard from the dude in 3 years. Like, that's strange.
Right.
But he probably has his own motive, either covering his own ass, or maybe he's one of these people that has a tremendous sense of betrayal and is just so pissed still and hurt. We have to, I have to be receptive to that. But then there are the ones who lean in, right? And most of those people don't surprise you. But then there are others that lean in and they surprise you. Like, wow, I didn't know you had my back like that. And so you get surprised on both sides. And at the end of it all, dude, you look around, you're like, all right, if these people are here, these are the people that are going to ride anything out with me, which is kind of cool and refreshing for me to really know right? If you're loading up a bus with all your most loyal, closest friends, I fucking know who's on that bus now.
Yeah,
right?
you know now.
At this point. And for 20 years, you know, there was just a bunch of chumps that were on that bus, but you know, as soon as the somebody changed the music, they hopped off. And so
It takes adversity
yeah.
to illuminate that. There's no other way. And until you test them, you really don't know.
Yeah, adversity. I remember, this is a funny question. This is a postal thing, but once I was at I don't remember the postmaster general's name, his name at the time, but we did this is totally unrelated, but you said adversity, so it reminded me. He was introducing me at this thing, and he wanted to say, you know, introducing me, he's overcome great adversity. He says, here's Lance, he's overcome great diversity. And I remember thinking, Jesus, white kid from Plano. I didn't overcome shit when it came to diversity.
Whoops.
Mm-hmm.
Raising kids.
Yep.
We both have children, and obviously when you're raising a kid, you're teaching them about life. You're trying to set an example.
Yep.
Did you have to sit them down and explain what was going on? How old were your youngest at the time?
Oh, and the youngest were 1 and 2.
Whoa.
Yeah, but
so you didn't have to explain.
So I have 3 kids with my ex-wife, Kristen, and Luke is now 16, and twin girls that are 14, and then I have a 6 and a 5-year-old with Anna. And by the way, it's the craziest blended family you've ever seen. Like those 5 kids are 5 siblings. It's the most beautiful thing, and Anna and Kristen are like sisters. I mean, I got a great situation.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Takes a lot of work, but or took a lot of work to get to this place, but it's awesome. And Kristen, to her credit, was who I was married to during this ugly period, and who would obviously would have known everything, has been great. Whether it's conversations she's had with our older children while they're at her house, or just helping massage this thing. But I'm still sitting down with my kids. I mean, our whole, I go to therapy, Anna goes, we all go, the kids go, so we still sit down and just kind of work this out, dude. This is a complicated thing. And and the crazy thing is my older kids have kind of gotten through it. The 6 and the 5-year-old will come into it, right? I mean, the internet and fucking Google, Wikipedia, you name it, they will grow into this. Like at some point, my 6-year-old boy, who's just a fanatical athlete and everything is sports and sports and sports. I mean, I hear him and his friends talk about Tom Brady, and one of his friends is like, "Oh, he's a cheater." My son loves Tom Brady. He's like, "Oh, he's a cheater." I'm like, it ain't gonna be long before Max Armstrong is at school, and some kid in another class goes, "Isn't your dad that cheater?" Like he's gonna be like, "What?" Like he doesn't know that, but he's going to grow into that. So that conversation will then be had at that time. It's tough to have it with a 6-year-old today, but so I know that's coming, right? And so, but I have the experience of having dealt with it with a 16-year-old boy who at the time was 13, and still dealing with it with those guys. And so far, I mean, I think we've been super proactive. Probably, Anna and Kristen probably think I should have been more proactive, but. I think that's in a good spot. So you have group therapy sessions where you just discuss? So I've sat with all 3 kids, the older kids, and it's just sort of free for all. Wow. Yeah. And they had no idea until the scandal broke. Yep. And what was their reaction? The girls were 9, so they were young. I mean, a 9-year-old girl. They really didn't have a reaction. Luke was a 13-year-old boy. No, so they were 11. So Luke was 13. They were 11. They still sort of were immune to it. He was. I mean, he watched Oprah because it aired 3 or 4 days later. I had sort of fled to Hawaii. I mean, he called me because I talked about Luke on her show with the whole idea that I know he's defending me at school. I mean. There was enough smoke that people were going, dude, your dad's a doper, et cetera. And he was defending me. And my point to Oprah was that at this point I get to say to Luke, stop defending me. You don't need to defend me anymore, right? It's true. And so he watched that, which is probably a heavy moment for him. It would have been awful watching it with him. But he called me and said, I understand and I love you. But we still, I mean, that was 3 years ago. We still have to talk about these things, man.
How often?
Not often.
But it still occasionally comes up, especially if you're talking about the importance of being honest and truthful and having character.
Yeah. And he's an athlete. I mean, look, I mean, that's the only thing that I will say. I mean, I don't want, ideally, my son's huge. He's 6'3", 230 pounds, plays offensive line.
Well, that's good.
That is
not
good.
too many people would be fucking with him.
I think he's good there, but he's also a real sweet guy. Like he's not in anybody's face. But I don't want him to say his football passion or career, call it what you will, ends up, at a high level. I mean, I don't want him in a messy spot where he's got to make tough choices.
Right.
In fact, I don't want that at all.
And football is a sport where you have to make tough choices. I mean,
I'm not a football player, but I can.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
I have friends that are.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and it's also open, and it's also brought up by coaches, and it's also brought up by trainers. I mean, it's just it's a part of the game as much as I'm sure it is in cycling.
Yeah. Yeah.
That had to be it's just had to be chewing you apart when you know that your kid's defending you and you know it's going to come out. And you know he's having these conversations at school and he's like, my dad's not a cheater.
Yep. Well, we didn't know it was going to come out. I mean, even when Nowitzki was investigating, I mean, that case went away, right? So we thought at that point, maybe we're done, and it didn't. I mean, USADA picked up the investigation, and then, based on all his work, they picked it up, and then it came out. But man, it happened fast. Like it was seemingly instantaneous, man.
Did it surprise you?
Yeah. I guess it surprised me, but shit, anybody would have been surprised, I suppose. And it was just surreal, the way it all came out, and the method at which they sort of advertised the findings. It was, and there was a whole to their credit. I mean, there was a strategy on their end. So let's take Nowitzki's work. Let's do some additional investigations. Let's package it in with something they called the reasoned decision, and then let's go out and talk about it all over the place. Like that was kind of unbelievable to me.
Why do you think they spent so much time and resources going after you, as opposed to all the other people who've won?
Because they needed a landmark case. I think there's plenty of people that, and I'm just guessing. This is not based on any proof, and I've had conversations with USADA. I mean, I think we're still getting to the point where we can do stuff together or have a conversation. So I'm not trying to criticize them. I mean, I think there ought to be a place for them. But I think there's also realistic. I mean, in reality, there are people that think they're ineffective. They think they spend 10 or 20 or 50, whatever the number is, millions of dollars a year, and they don't catch anybody, right? I mean, if you look at the amount of positives, it must be less than 1%. Well, if I told you, well, Joe, we're all good, man. It's less than 1% testing positive. You would
right.
You think
that
right?
Yeah.
So they needed a landmark case to say no, we are effective, and here it is. And I think also from a legal perspective, it sets some legal precedents for them that they can use going forward in other cases with future cases. But and then you add in just a ginormous story that was guaranteed to get a lot of press. But it still pains me to look. I know what went on. We all know what went on. But I can't take when I hear that this program or this particular athlete, being me, was the greatest fraud in the history of sport. I can't. That's just not true, right? And then when you hear that our team's doping program was the most sophisticated program in the history of sport. Well, we also know that's not true, right? So those are, and then the final one, which is really, I think, bothered a lot of people, that this person, being me, forced young, impressionable young men to put dangerous substances into their body, right? That just is not true. And but if I heard if somebody said that about one of my son's friends, I would be pissed off too. Like, I'd be like, dude, screw that guy.
Right.
But we all made our own choices. We were all grown men. They were bad choices, right? Most would say, we would say. But there was no forcing to do that.
What is it like now? Like in, I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but your personal life, like, people value honesty. It's one of the most important things in friends and,
Yep.
and lovers. When you have this thing where you're on video over and over and over and over and over and over again, being deceptive, over and over again, defending yourself. And then you come out and say it's all a lie. And so there's this like database of lying. Like, what is it like trying to get people to trust you?
Right. Hey, man, this is what I talked about in the beginning. Is that road that will be never, that is a never-ending path. I will be walking that walk the rest of my life. And there are a lot of people that'll say, I'm never trusting this guy ever again. I don't care. I don't care how apologetic or contrite he is. I'm done. But that's the key is that I have to be committed to that path, right? And so I can walk that walk and take each case individually and one-on-one. But talk about endurance. I mean, we've talked about endurance. That will be the longest walk or the longest journey of my life.
Do you have a code that you follow now? I mean, have you imposed like a stringent set of rules on yourself where, like, because of this history, you can't lie about anything ever?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I haven't thought. I mean, I guess the answer is no, because there's not been a, sort of a new mission statement or sort of this key, but I mean, life was pretty transparent anyways before that. But I mean, there was the huge deception, but it's not as if there's anything crazy out there outside of that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, that's a big thing with people,
Mm-hmm.
To be able to trust their friends or be able to trust their boyfriend or girlfriend,
Yep. For sure.
What is life like for Lance Armstrong now? Like, is everything calmed down to the point where the stress is minimized except for the lawsuit?
Yeah, it's as I said a second ago, it's just simple, man. I mean, I love to work out, so I train every day. I think that's
What do you do?
I primarily run, and then I'll do a little bit of gym work, and then I'll ride occasionally, although very rarely get on a bike. And
why is that?
It takes too much time, and it's just.
It takes too much time?
Well, I mean, you could run for an hour.
Oh, I see.
If you do a hard run for an hour, you got to go ride for 3 hours.
Right.
So that's 2 more hours plus you got to get all the shit on and go out and deal with traffic.
But does it psychologically fuck with you when you get on a bike?
I mean, I have some bitterness there towards what we've talked about, primarily in and around the economy of it, how it was.
Right.
And now everybody's like, no, we're out. Or we don't want to.
Right.
We're going to, so that's on me. I got to work that out, and that's not their fault. That's my fault. So there's some of that, and it's nice to do. I love to run. I mean, I ran before I rode, so it's nice to go into something where I can still get. I mean, I view working out. You probably view it the same way. It's almost like a therapy. Like, you're in there, you're suffering, you're just working shit out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do when I work out or go for a long run. So I do that. I joke. I mean, we have 5 kids. They're in 4 different schools, so I'm like an Uber driver for my kids. Traffic in Austin is not like LA, but it's bad now.
It's getting bad now,
dude. And so all I do is
weird.
drive my kids around.
Too many people talk about how great Austin is. That's what happened.
Right. Well, but they didn't build that city 50 years ago to accommodate 2 million people.
No.
Right. And then I play a lot of golf, which is why we're going to end this podcast a little bit so I can go play. Play Riviera today, man. Don't mess with my tee time.
I don't want to mess with your tea time. I appreciate your time very much, man. I appreciate you doing this.
We're already done?
We can keep going. Want to keep going?
I don't know if Higgs is here yet.
I'm sure he's here.
Did he?
Someone's calling me. No, it's not him. But
and then you got the Hunter book. We got to talk a little bit about Hunter.
yeah, definitely.
I didn't know you were a fan until I saw maybe Bill Burr retweeted maybe your tweet that said, if there's one person that's dead that I could meet today or was alive, it would be Hunter.
Yeah, it was a Instagram post that I made about one of his incredible quotes about. It was about heroes, and it was particularly poignant about. It was after Ronda Rousey got knocked out that I posted it. That people they love the idea of someone who is like a superhuman person, like someone who's a legend, someone who can defy the odds, because it gives them hope in this crazy world of boredom and cubicles. And I'm doing a shitty job of paraphrasing it, but it's a fantastic quote. Yep. And then you got a hold of me about it and had that incredible book sent to me when Hunter was running for sheriff of Aspen.
Yep. So he just, he kind of ruled the valley. I mean, he lived down in Woody Creek, but the whole valley the Roaring Fork Valley was kind of his domain, man. He was and his best friend was our longtime sheriff. He was the sheriff for 26 years, Bob Browdis, who's a great friend of mine. His undersheriff is probably my best bud there, a guy by the name of Joe DeSalvo. So how a kid from Brooklyn ends up in Aspen is now the sheriff. He's on his second term. So Joey and Bob were Hunter's best buddies. So, I mean, fucking crazy stories. And not to toot my own horn, but Bob is the sweetest guy. He's the guy that was sheriff for 26 years. He says to me one day, he calls me Champ, which is also funny. He says, Champ, did you ever meet Hunter? And I said, no, I never met him. And he pauses for a long time and he goes, man, he would have loved you. And I took that, I was like, fucking hey, that is a compliment right there. Like, that
is a compliment.
I mean, Hunter was nuts in a lot of ways, but he had such a diverse group of friends, whether it was our sheriff or whether it was Lyle Lovett or whether it was Johnny Depp or whether it was Doug Brinkley. I mean, just this diverse group of fucking artists and thinkers and lawmen and druggies and dude, gnarly. I mean, he'd go out to the shit they did was just, I probably can't even talk about it.
I'm sure you can. He's dead. It's fine.
No, but some of the people are still alive.
They're still alive. Well, we were talking before the podcast about his ritual, before he would write.
So,
superhuman.
So you read that, and if for those listening, you just Google, Hunter Thompson's daily regime, and it'll come up. I think Esquire wrote it. And the shit starts at like, what is he? He wakes up at like 3 p.m, right? And you got to go read it. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I thought, this is so unreal, it ain't true. So I called Joey, our sheriff, and I said, dude, have you seen this? And he says, yeah. I said, that's not real. You know what he said? He said, that isn't enough. He said, that's light. Can you believe? Go read it, people, and then imagine that didn't quite get there.
Well, Jamie, why don't you find it? Because it's kind of hilarious. We could actually read it on the air.
Dude.
Yeah, he had a strong tolerance for substances, and I don't think he ever went without. I mean, it's just he wasn't interested.
No.
Yeah. I mean, that was the life that he was interested in. He was interested in just getting fucked up and having a great time and writing about shit and pontificating on the demise of civilization.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's what caught up to him, but
it definitely did.
Yeah, how could you?
Did you ever see the late appearances? I have a really hard time watching his later appearances. Like, we would do like the Conan O'Brien show, and you couldn't understand a word he was saying. Like here, you can see it right here. 3 p.m. rise, 3:05, Chivas Regal with morning papers, Dunhills, 3:45, cocaine, 3:50, another glass of Chivas, another Dunhill, 4:05, first cup of coffee, Dunhill.
Reminder, this is PM.
Yes,
First
PM.
cup of coffee.
4:15, cocaine. 4:16, orange juice, Dunhill. 4:30, cocaine. 4:54, cocaine. 5:05, cocaine. 5:11, coffee, Dunhills. 5:30, more ice in the shivas. 5:45, cocaine, etc., etc. 6 p.m., grass to take the edge off the day. The 3 hours he's been awake have been stressful.
Big.
7 o'clock, Woody Creek Tavern for lunch with Heineken, 2 margaritas, coleslaw, taco salad, double order, fried onion rings, carrot cake, ice cream, a bean fritter, Dunhills, another Heineken, cocaine, and for the ride home, a snow cone, a glass of shredded ice over which is poured 3 or 4 jiggers of Chivas. God damn it. 9, start snorting cocaine seriously.
Now it got serious.
10, drops acid. 11, chartreuse, cocaine, grass. 11:30, cocaine, etc., etc. Midnight, Hunter S. Thompson is ready to write.
That is.
And then it keeps going on. 12:05 to 6 a.m. Chartreuse, cocaine, grass, Chivas, coffee, Heineken, clove cigarettes, grapefruit, Dunhills, orange juice, gin, continuous pornographic movies. 6, in the hot tub, champagne, Dove bars, fettuccine Alfredo. 8 a.m. Halcyon. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Halcyon. That's
sleeping pill.
That's the first. That was before Ambien.
Yeah, 8:20 sleep.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
So I asked these guys. I asked the sheriffs. I'm like, that shit's not real.
Yeah, there's the quote that I post. Myths and legends die hard in America. We love them for the extra dimension they provide, the illusion of near infinite possibility to erase the narrow confines of most men's reality. Weird heroes and mold-breaking champions exist as proof to those who need it that the tyranny of the rat race is not yet final.
Yep.
I mean, isn't that? I mean, that applies to you too, dude.
I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it applies to your life.
Yeah.
I mean, and
yeah.
that's part of the reason I'm sure why some people are pissed at you. It's like you were a legend with a caveat.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the story in its totality, right? If I was just a cyclist, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But the cancer part of the story, right, is what everybody nobody could relate to cycling. They got to figure it out. They started to watch it. Like, cool, he won again. Right. The cancer part of it, everybody can relate to, right? I mean, everybody has either had the disease themselves or lost a loved one or had a loved one or a friend or a neighbor affected by it. So they're like, all right, I'm in. Like that. That's some bullshit right there. That disease. So and they rallied around that, and that's why that fall came swift and hard, man.
Well, there's parallels in life when it comes to this story in a lot of ways because everything is kind of messy. Mm-hmm. The reality versus the narrative, it's always messy. Yep. And there's so many variables that don't get discussed, and there's so many aspects of it that they're flexible and they move around, and that's...
Yeah, I mean, more and more now. I mean, the transparency we see in our society today, whether it's politicians or politics or sports or entertainment industry. I mean, dude, imagine, like I always say, like, if I give you 3 names that were alive today, like Sinatra, we just had celebrated his 100th birthday. If you took Sinatra, JFK, and Michael Jordan, and they were at their peak today,
TMZ alone,
dude, would be nuking people.
Yeah,
and so we're just getting deeper and deeper into that.
Yeah, and I think this is just still the beginning.
Yeah, well, for sure.
Well, I think what's going on with technology too is we're seeing this very obvious trend that the boundaries between people and thoughts and ideas and reality and facts, they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where they're going to be erased. And I don't know how that's going to happen, but I think it's going to happen with something that connects us in a much more personal way than peripheral devices like laptops or phones. I think there's going to be some technology that connects us body to body, whether it's some sort of a neural implant or something along those lines.
Damn.
I really do. I think it's inevitable. Yeah. I mean, the symbiotic relationship that we have with cell phones right now is undeniable. I leave my phone, like you dropped your phone, you're like, fuck, where's my phone? My phone's broken, fuck.
No, here, yeah.
Yeah.
I did drop my phone, but I'm like fucking scratching myself because I haven't had the phone for like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
Dude, it's... That ain't good.
No, it's not good. I leave my phone sometimes in the car when I go do the podcast, and I don't realize that I left it. And I'll be in the middle of a great podcast, but like, fuck, my phone's not here. I'm not even going to use it. It's out there. I don't touch it. But the fact that it's not physically, like, I want it right there.
Dude, imagine if, like, you're on here and you just start, like, you got some guest on and you're, like, texting. I mean, the guest would be like,
what the fuck?
What's he doing?
Yeah.
I come all the way over here, this godforsaken valley, and that L.A. traffic, and the guy's on his phone.
Yeah, well, I have had people that are guests that start checking their Twitter. Like Neil Brennan will start checking his Twitter in the middle of the podcast. What the fuck are you doing? I want to see what people are saying about it. Talk to them afterwards. Just flip your phone over.
You don't let people call in and ask questions? Or tweet and ask questions?
Yeah, we've done that before, but the problem is the people that want to do it are usually trolls. You know,
some of those might be fun. I like.
If I wanted that kind of a show, I would do an all call-in show.
I did a talk about a couple months ago in Denver, and 600 people, and it was kind of a moderated Q&A, and then the audience was allowed to ask questions, and people were cool. They were asking questions, and the moderator says, and there's a line to get to the mic to ask questions, and the guy says, not that this lady, I'm not calling her a troll, but the guy says, is anybody in line really pissed at Lance and want to ask a question? This lady in the back, she's like, me. Wow. She comes trucking up there. And so, I was like, this is going to be super interesting. Like, what the hell is she going to ask me? How am I going to answer it? So I maybe I like a challenge, but
you definitely like a challenge. I think you're just bored. Yeah. In between golf games, you want to spar with somebody verbally.
Hey, ask Higgs if my phone got fixed. Did he text you?
Let me see. He's probably out there.
I looked when I went to go to the bathroom.
It says, cool, thanks. That's the last thing he said. Here, I'll text him right now. You out there?
Who says ha, cool, thanks?
He did. Because I said you wanted Advil. He says, I said, Lance would like you to bring Advil. He says, ha, cool, thanks. And I said, you out there?
Yeah, it was his birthday last night. So we went out to dinner and we got, way too drunk.
It happens.
But dude, it happens.
What we were talking about technology, though, about bringing people closer together, and the fact that there's going to, I really think there's going to be no secrets. I don't think anybody's going to have secrets from anybody in the future.
Right.
I think you caught like the wave of this trend before it got even crazier than it. I mean, right. you caught that wave, and even in 2012, the comparison between 2012 and 2015, it's like it's ramped up considerably.
For sure.
And it'll continue to do that.
Yep. Yeah.
There's no getting around it, right?
Yeah.
Is that good? Is that a good thing? Or is it just what it is?
Yeah, well, you and I are not going to stop it, so it's inevitable.
No one is.
Nobody's.
I think it's going to not just. One of the things that's going to happen is it's not going to just be celebrities. It's not going to be just people like you, people like Michael Jordan or whoever.
Right.
It's going to be everybody.
Right.
It's going to be, if you want to find out anything about Jamie, it's going to be all on the table.
Maybe Jamie was one of those Ashley Madison clients.
He could have been. Those
maybe
people.
Nowitzki was.
Well, there have been some fucking ridiculous people that wound up killing themselves when, like preachers and shit like that it was found out. But how dumb do you have to be to think that that's going to be secure? You're going to go on some dating site. I mean, come on, man. Like, that's insane. But, what kind of a fucking weirdo wants to find out about people that were on the dating site? Like,
well,
what do you give a shit? Leave them alone.
Exactly.
But that's not the world we live in, right?
I got to take a leak again.
Do you? Well, let's end this fucking thing.
Well, let's end it. Yeah, we're done.
I think we're
11:30.
done.
It's 11:20. Supposed to tee off at 11:30, but
all right. Were you really?
Yeah, but I'm going to meet him out there. It's all good. It's all good, man.
Well, thank you, Lance. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this.
And thanks for listening. Hopefully somebody listened.
A lot of people listen.
Cool.
I'm sure.
Cool.
All right. That's it. Bye, everybody.
Bye.